Su Bong passed away on July 17th, 1994, so it was 27 years ago. So the Hong Kong Zen Centre was doing kind of a memorial ceremony for him. So it made me think of him because that was just a few days ago. And for those of you who don't know Su Bong, he was a very important teacher in our school, and he spent a lot of time at the Cambridge Zen Centre and at the Providence Zen Centre. A lot of us were lucky enough to practice with him in Korea as well. And he spent some time in Hong Kong, which I've never been to. And I wanted to share a couple of stories about him because he was pretty terrific. And one of the stories had to do with, he had such a great dono mind. It was sometimes kind of funny how strong the dono mind was. It could be silly, but I love that quality about him. I think all of his students did. And this story is in Dropping Ashes on the Buddha. So when he first started practicing, he loved koans. He was really into koans. And he took everything in life as a koan, like every single thing. He would just be seized and gripped with this dono mind. And so he was working on something that he was doing with a Japanese master named Kozan Roshi called, how do you play the flute with no holes? And then he was a carpenter. So somebody gave him this koan of how do you drive a nail without a hammer? And then the other one was, what am I? And so he wrote this letter to Zen Master Sungsan, and it's published in Dropping Ashes on the Buddha. And he starts out, dear Sansanim, and how are you? He said, I have all these questions like burning in my mind, and they're just all like jambalaya. I've got the flute with no holes and the nail without the hammer. But the one that's really getting me the most is, what am I? And, as a matter of fact, that one is actually making me sick to my stomach right now. It's making me sick. And so since you gave me that, you're the only one that can take it back. So I'd like to give that question back to you. And also, I'd like to tell you to go fuck yourself. He wrote this in the letter. And he wrote sincerely, and then he put Sihui, that was his name at the time. And Sansanim wrote him back, and as usual, he always did his letters like a formula. So he'd put the date and then dear so-and-so, so dear Sihui. And then he'd always say, in your letter, you said, and then he'd enumerate the points. So he answered the points, and then he said, so in your letter, you told me to go fuck myself. These are very wonderful words you have given me. And if you get enlightenment one day, I will give them back to you. And, then he said, yours in the Dharma, Sung-san. And I thought, well, that is truly the mark of a skilled high-class teacher. Because a lot of people would have been very, angry to get such language. And I love the way that Sansanim was able to take that so skillfully and to give that back to Su Bong. And of course he loved it too. And he was a really good teacher. And then in closing, I wanted to share, he just had such strong Dharma energy. I wanted to share the story of his death with you guys, because this was talk about an exit. So there was a 14-year-old girl in Hong Kong that really wanted to come and have an interview with him. And she was very excited about koan practice. And for that interview, he had his monk's robes on, and it was like a special interview. It wasn't a retreat. He went to the Zen Center specifically for her, because that was the only day she could go, I think. And she was sitting there, she was really excited. And so he said to her, what is perceive world sound? That's our school. Quan means perceive world sound. And this girl answered correctly. And then he had his full special kasa on and everything. And then he just expired while he was sitting there in the interview with her. Now, what was really interesting is Diane, who's sitting here tonight, her daughter, Mandy, was really close to Sihui. And it reminded me, because Mark talks about that in the video that he made for the Hong Kong Zen Centre, about how Mandy and Jesse just loved him so much. And Mandy was also 14 on the other side of the globe. So he's sitting with a 14-year-old girl in Hong Kong, and there's Mandy on the other side of the world who has a strong connection with him. And July 17th is her birthday. And so he died, and it was the middle of the night. So at that time, Diane was married to Mark still, and they got the call in the morning. And, you know, they were like crying or sad, and they were sitting there, and Mandy came out of her room, and they said, Mandy, we have something we have to tell you. And she said, you don't have to tell me. I already know, Mom. I already know, Dad. Sihui came to me last night in my dream, and he's fine. She said, I saw him, and he was like a million dots of light. And it was like this really, really bright and happy thing. And she already knew without having to be told that he died that night. Isn't that just, I mean, I'm not saying it to be magical or anything like that, but just like he just had that kind of energy. I found it so amazing that it was on her birthday, and both these girls were 14 on two different sides of the world. And that the last words he said were, what does it mean, perceive world sound? Last words. And this is why our school is called this. Perceive world sound means if you're clear and you go before thinking, then our eyes and ears are open to the sounds of the world, all the sounds, the joy and all the suffering. And then hopefully if we can perceive that, then we can act accordingly to our human nature in the right way. So I hope that we can all perceive world sound, get enlightenment, and save all beings from suffering. Thank you all so much for coming.